Welcome to the SafeSimpleSound podcast, where we believe that true wealth isn't just about the numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about the life those numbers support. We are dedicated to approach to financial planning, creating both and solutions for the contradictions families face every day. Today, we are exploring a fundamental challenge that almost every investor faces at some point in their journey. It's a topic we recently explored in our written series, and we felt it was vital to bring this conversation to audio because it touches the very heart of why we plan in the first place. We're talking about the scorecard. Specifically, how do you know if you are winning? In the traditional financial world, the answer is usually shouted at you. Returns. You need higher returns. It's a noisy, anxious environment that treats your life savings like a high-stakes horse race. But in our Safe Simple Sound practice, we hear a different voice from the families we serve. It's a quieter, wiser voice that whispers, I want to grow, yes, but I also need to be safe. I need to sleep at night. This creates a tension, a tug of war between the desire for aggressive growth and the need for foundational security. It can feel like you have to choose one or the other. But what if you didn't? What if the goal wasn't either or, but both and? In this episode, we are going to walk through an approach that resolves this conflict. We are going to dismantle the dangerous obsession with the one-number scoreboard and introduce you to the S3 scorecard. Whether you are approaching retirement and feeling the pressure to maximize every dollar, or you are in the building phase trying to make sense of market volatility, this episode will give you a new way to measure success, one that prioritizes your peace of mind and your family's vision over arbitrary market benchmarks. By the end of our time together, you will understand how to calculate the most appropriate risk-adjusted, after-tax real return for your specific life. It is about moving from anxiety to architecture. Let's begin. To understand the solution, we first have to honestly look at the problem. In our practice at Safe Simple Sound, we often observe a specific pattern of frustration. Experienced investors, people who have done a good job saving, often find themselves caught in a contradiction. On one side, you have the financial media and perhaps even well-meaning friends at a cocktail party, focused entirely on the rate of return. The market did 12%, they might say, or my portfolio is up 15%. It sets a standard that says winning equals the highest number possible. But on the other side, there is the reality of your life. There is the need for liquidity, the fear of loss, and the desire for stability. When we focus solely on that single number, the annual percentage return, we are using a flawed scoreboard. It is simple, yes, it is easy to compare. But from our perspective, developing the S3 framework, we view it as one of the most dangerous metrics to use in isolation. Think about it this way. Imagine you are driving a car. You have a destination in mind. Let's say you're driving your family to a beautiful vacation home in the mountains. If you were to drive that car by only looking at the speedometer, you might be going very fast. The speedometer might say 90 miles per hour. By the metric of speed, you are winning. But looking only at speed tells you nothing about the journey. It doesn't tell you if you are on the right road. It doesn't tell you if you are burning fuel so fast that you'll run out before you arrive. It certainly doesn't tell you if there is a sharp curve ahead on a cliffside road where 90 miles per hour will result in disaster. Chasing the highest possible return is exactly like driving by the speedometer. You might be moving fast, but are you safe? And are you actually getting closer to your destination? This narrow focus often leads families to take on undue risk. It causes them to ignore the corrosive effects of taxes and inflation. And most importantly, it causes them to lose sight of the real reason they are investing. At Safe Simple Sound, our principles suggest a shift in thinking. We need to move away from maximization and toward optimization. True financial success isn't a number. It's a state of being. It is the quiet confidence that your financial system is working efficiently to support the life you want to live. In our framework, we call this Stakeholder Synthesis. This sounds like a technical term, but it is actually quite simple. It means bringing all the relevant factors, taxes, inflation, risk, behavior, and your personal goals together to serve the most important stakeholder in the room, you and your family. This brings us to the S3 scorecard. Instead of asking, "Did I beat the market?" the S3 framework asks three guiding questions that ensure your plan is safe, sound, and simple. Let's look at the first pillar, safe. The question we ask here is my real after-tax return sufficient for my goals at a level of risk I can handle? Now notice the nuance in that question. We aren't asking, is the return high? We are breaking it down into critical components. First, real return. This aligns with the principle of honest accounting. A 6% return sounds good, but if inflation is running at 4%, your real purchasing power, what you can actually buy with that money, only grew by 1.92%. Conversely, in a low inflation environment of 2%, that same 6% return is much more powerful. We must measure purchasing power, not just paper gains. Second, after-tax return. What do you actually get to keep? Through our team's background in advanced financial planning, we see this constantly. A portfolio generating high returns in a taxable account might be whittled down significantly by capital gains taxes. It might actually be less effective than a more modest tax-efficient return in a different vehicle. It's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. Third, and perhaps most importantly, sufficiency. Is the return sufficient for your goals? If your financial plan works perfectly with a 5% return and you are taking the risk required to get a 15% return, you are exposing your family to unnecessary danger. In the S3 philosophy, sufficiency is the hallmark of confidence. We don't need to win the race, we just need to arrive at the destination safely. And finally, risk tolerance. Is the portfolio aligned with your ability to sleep at night? If a plan looks great on a spreadsheet but causes you to panic and sell during a downturn, it is, by definition, an unsound plan. So that is the safe pillar. It redefines the metric from how much did I make to is this enough, is it real, and is it safe? This creates a psychological safety net. It removes the pressure to outperform a neighbor or a news anchor and places the focus back on your specific vision. To truly understand how this scorecard changes a family's trajectory, it is helpful to step out of the abstract and look at a practical application. Let me share a hypothetical scenario that illustrates how these principles apply in the real world. While this story is created for educational purposes, it demonstrates patterns we frequently observe when families begin to apply S3 thinking to their retirement planning. Consider a fictional couple. Let's call them Robert and Elena. They are in their early 60s, approaching retirement. Robert has spent his career in corporate management. Elena has been a dedicated educator. They have saved diligently, accumulating a nest egg of $2 million. In this hypothetical situation, Robert is fixated on the one-number scoreboard. He watches financial news daily. He feels a tight knot of anxiety in his chest whenever the S&P 500 outperforms his own portfolio. He comes to the table believing he needs to earn 10% or 12% a year to be safe because he is terrified of running out of money. Because of this fear, Robert keeps their portfolio aggressively invested, mostly in high-growth stocks. However, every time the market dips, he panics. He calls Elena, worried they are losing everything. The stress is palpable in their home. They are winning the return game in good years, but they are losing the peace of mind game every single day. Now, let's apply the S3 scorecard to Robert and Elena's hypothetical situation. We start with question 1, safe. Is the return sufficient for their goals at a level of risk they can handle? When we run the numbers for their specific lifestyle, their travel plans, their desire to help their grandchildren, we discover something profound. To fund their contradiction-free life, they don't actually need a 12% return. They need a real return of about 4% above inflation. Suddenly, the pressure valve releases. Robert has been taking the risk of a race car driver to go to the grocery store. By realizing that a lower, safer return is sufficient, they can de-risk their portfolio. They can move assets into more stable positions. They stop trying to beat the market and start trying to fund their specific goals. Next, we look at question 2, sound. How does performance compare to a relevant benchmark? Robert was comparing his entire portfolio to the S&P 500, an index of 100% stocks. But his portfolio had some bonds and cash. He was comparing apples to oranges, which made him feel like he was constantly failing. A sound approach changes the benchmark. We ask, how is the stock portion of the portfolio doing against the stock market? How is the bond portion doing against the bond market? And critically, how is Robert and Elena's behavior performing? In this scenario, by changing the benchmark, Robert realizes his investments were actually doing exactly what they were supposed to do. The failure was only in the comparison, not the performance. Finally, we apply question 3. Simple. Is this system working to simplify life and provide peace of mind? Before this shift, their system was complex and stressful. It required constant monitoring. It was a source of tension between Robert and Elena. By adopting the scorecard, the system becomes simple. They know what they need sufficiency. They know how to measure it, relevant benchmarking. And the result? The knot in Robert's chest loosens. Elena feels heard. The financial plan moves from being a source of stress to a source of support. While Robert and Elena are fictional characters, their story demonstrates how the framework functions. We see this pattern consistently in our practice. The anxiety usually doesn't come from a lack of money. It comes from a lack of clarity on what the money is for and how to measure progress. This example shows us that when you shift from an external scoreboard, what the market is doing, to an internal scorecard, what your life requires, the decision-making process changes entirely. From a SafeSimpleSound perspective, this provides the stability we look for. It aligns with the principle of soundness, ensuring that the plan is robust enough to handle market cycles without requiring heroic behavior from the investor. Whether you are facing this exact situation, feeling the pressure to maximize returns, or simply feeling a vague sense of unease about your progress, the application is the same. You have the authority to change the scorecard. We touched on the safe pillar before Robert and Elena's story, but I want to take a moment to really unpack the remaining 2 questions of the scorecard: sound and simple. These are often overlooked, but they are critical for long-term success. Let's look deeper at question 2. Sound. How does my performance, both investment and personal, compare to a relevant benchmark over time? We mentioned benchmarking, but there is a deeper layer here regarding personal performance. This is something our team emphasizes heavily. A sound financial plan isn't just about what the stocks do, it's about what you do. Are you sticking to your savings plan? Are you reviewing your financial constitution annually? Are you resisting the urge to tinker when headlines get scary? In the S3 framework, soundness is as much about your behavior as it is about your portfolio. If your portfolio returns 10%, but you panicked and sold at the bottom and bought back at the top, your personal return might be negative. So when we keep score, we have to score ourselves. Did we follow the constitution we wrote? If the answer is yes, then we are winning, regardless of what the market did that quarter. This shifts the locus of control back to you. You cannot control the Federal Reserve or the stock market, but you can control your adherence to your own plan. That is empowering. Now let's move to question 3. Simple. Is this system working to simplify my life and provide peace of mind? This is perhaps the most radical question in the financial industry. The industry often sells complexity. It sells complex derivatives, hedge funds, and strategies that require a PhD to understand, implying that complexity equals sophistication. Our SafeSimpleSound methodology argues the opposite. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Why? Because complexity is fragile. Complexity breaks under stress. If you don't understand how your money is invested, you will abandon the strategy when things get tough. So we ask, is your system simplifying your life? A truly successful financial system works for you, not the other way around. It should automate good decisions. It should be easy to explain to your spouse or partner. It should free up your mental and emotional energy. Think about the mental bandwidth you spend worrying about money. Imagine if that energy were returned to you. Imagine if you could focus that energy entirely on your career, your grandchildren, your hobbies, or your community. If your strategy is so complex that it requires you to check an app 5 times a day, or requires endless meetings to manage, it has failed the simple test, even if the returns are high. Peace of mind is not just a nice-to-have byproduct. In our view, peace of mind is the ultimate return. It is the asset that cannot be taxed and cannot be inflated away. So, when you look at your current financial setup, ask yourself, is this adding clarity to my life, or is it adding noise? A plan should act like a noise-canceling headphone for your financial life. As we bring this episode to a close, let's review the shift we've discussed today. We are inviting you to stop playing the game the industry wants you to play, the game of who got the highest return, and start playing the game of who has the most funded, peaceful life. By adopting the S3 scorecard, you elevate your perspective. One, safe. You stop asking how much and start asking, is it sufficient and real? You prioritize the safety of your vision over the maximization of a number. Two, sound. You stop comparing yourself to irrelevant indexes and start measuring your progress against your own goals and your own behavior. Three, simple. You reject complexity and embrace a system that gives you your time and peace of mind back. This is the essence of what we do. Drawing from our team's CFC background, we know that the math has to work. But drawing from our SafeSimpleSound philosophy, we know that the math means nothing if the human element is broken. The scorecard is the synthesis of these things. It creates a durable, deeply personal definition of success. It allows you to move from being a short-term speculator, worried about last quarter's volatility, to being the long-term architect of a well-funded life. This episode draws from our recent blog post titled Beyond Returns, which you can find at SafeSimpleSound.com. The written framework goes into even more detail on the calculations of real return and tax efficiency. Through our S3 approach development, we've created resources specifically designed to help you draft your own scorecard. If today's insights on stakeholder synthesis and the 3 pillars resonate with your family's situation, we invite you to explore what financial planning could look like through our SafeSimpleSound practice. But whether you choose to engage with our practice or not, you are now equipped with a powerful capability. You have the questions. You know that you can choose both and rather than either or. You can reject the anxiety of the speedometer and start focusing on the quality of the journey. Thank you for listening to the SafeSimpleSound podcast. Remember, keep it safe, keep it simple, and keep it sound.